On this episode of Eat Sleep Drive, we're talking about 1 month of Porsche ownership, and I'm going to let you guys in on some of the quirks of owning a 911 like this. What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Eat Sleep Drive. Now, I can't believe it's been a little over a month since I acquired this car. It's been great ownership so far, fingers crossed. Now, I bought this car a little over a month ago, and I wanted to do a video talking about some things that I've learned since I've had it and some of the quirks that go along with owning a 911, at least specifically a 997. So I want to go into those, basically give you guys some information of stuff that wouldn't typically be covered in a car review, but is basically just like ownership experience. So let's dive right in. The first thing that I've learned in 1 month of Porsche ownership is that I will never use Passim on the street. Now, Passim stands for Porsche Active Suspension Management, and that's basically a fancy way of saying this car has the ability to, on the fly, electronically change the damping of these shocks. That's all great and good on a racetrack, but I'm here to tell you that in the real world, at least in a place like the Midwest, in Cincinnati, Ohio, where I am, where the roads are not ideal, I'm never going to use it. Here's an example of what I'm talking about. This is a compact disc. Now, I know some of my younger viewers might not know what the heck this is, but it's a disc that spins around and plays music. But anyway, this car has a CD player. I'd use it sometimes, and I have had tracks skip with the CD player while I'm driving because I've hit just bumps, and the car has been jarred enough that it skips the track on my CD player. That is insane. My 99 Sony Walkman had better electronic skip protection than this car. It really all comes back down to the suspension. The suspension on this car is pretty firm stock. Without Passim on, just stock. It's pretty firm, but it is too firm with Passim on regular roads. The second thing that I've learned about this car is that cold starts are awesome. This thing has a cold start sequence that is very different than any other car I've owned. Now, a lot of that has to do with emissions. That's probably why it makes certain noises, but this startup sequence is pretty awesome. It just like growls and pops, and it makes it feel like a special car. So every time you go out to the garage and you start the car, it does have a special flavor to it. So listen in to what it sounds like when you start this car cold. The third thing I've learned about this car is that this spoiler automatically deploys at 50 miles an hour. Now, that might sound kind of silly, like that should be painfully obvious, right? Well, not really, and here's why. From where you're sitting in the driver or passenger seat, really, if you look in the rear view mirror, even when this is deployed, you don't see it at all. So you could theoretically get in this car if you knew nothing about it and never even know that this, in fact, does deploy. So at 50 miles an hour, this thing comes up, and the only reason I know that is because I was recording a video recently, and I had a GoPro on the side looking at the back, and I looked back at the footage, and I was like, I never pressed the spoiler button. Why is the spoiler deployed? As it turns out, it automatically comes up at speed. So now I say 50 miles an hour. I will caveat that and say that it depends on the temperature of the engine bay. Apparently, if the engine bay is still really cold, it won't deploy till 75. So Porsche guys, don't freak out. I did get the facts right on this one. Oh yeah, I got to show you guys what it looks like. Hold on. That made a lot more noise than I expected, but that's what it looks like. Now, you can, just like I said, press that button, and when you park it, it'll stay like that. It looks kind of cool. To me, it kind of pays homage to the older Porsches that kind of had that flat deck lid. And yeah, I think it looks pretty cool. The fourth thing that I've learned with this car is that the headlights are not automatic. Now, that might seem kind of silly, but I own a 2000 Toyota Avalon that the headlights are automatic. And this is an $80,000 Porsche that doesn't have automatic headlights, which is 6 years newer. This is completely mind-boggling to me. And now, cars are a weird thing for me because performance cars, at least, I like to be able to control things. I like to have a manual transmission I can control the traction control the active suspension, like softer or hard. But there's certain things that I just don't want to deal with. I don't want to deal with the headlights automatically turning off or on. I don't want to deal with HVAC. I just want to set a temperature and go. Come on, Porsche, this is completely unacceptable.
Stop yelling at me and just do your job. Just automatically turn off. This is ridiculous.
The last thing that I've learned in 1 month of ownership with this car is that the 911, at least the 997, is not the widowmaker that everyone claims it is. And here's what I mean by that. I have had 2 people since I have purchased this car tell me, oh, you bought a 911, those are rear engine, be really careful driving them, they'll snap on you. What they're talking about is this precedence that because this car is rear engine, the way that makes the car dynamically is that all the weight's in the rear. So if you go into a corner really hot and lift off the throttle, you kind of have a pendulum effect, right? All that weight in the back can come whipping around. Now that is true to an extent, but people act like you have to drive this car so carefully, otherwise that's gonna happen. I push this car pretty hard and I have not had anything like that to say about it. The weight over the rear axle gives you just this nice little slip angle that you can achieve with the car, which is really, really fun. And it is not snappy like people say. It is still quite progressive. It's clearly been perfected over the years. Like, I'm sure the early ones were like that when it had like a rudimentary suspension, but this is a later 911. They have had 40, 50 years to perfect the rear engine, and they have figured it out in the 997. It is not the widowmaker that people claim it to be. Well, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I've had this car for a little over a month, so these are just some things that I've observed that are not quite as obvious or that you would typically get in like a regular review of the car. I still plan to do a legitimate, nice review of this car in like all-encompassing, but I'm still waiting for the weather to be a little more cooperative, being that it's still really cold outside. So look for that in the future. And guys, if you liked the video, please like it. If you want to see more, be happy to have you guys subscribe. It's been great having you guys, and I appreciate you guys watching as always, and we'll see you next time.